Hi, I'm Michelle, and we are going to talk with two of our coral biologists about FWRI's efforts to respond to stony coral tissue loss disease. We have Tanya and Alan here. Hi.
Hi.
Tanya, what's your position and where are you located?
So I'm the Coral Rescue Project Coordinator, and I'm located at the South Florida Regional Lab in Marathon, Florida.
Hi, Alan. What is your position and where are you located?
My name is Alan Anderson. I am a coral caretaker for the Coral Rescue Program, and I'm also located here in Marathon, Florida in the beautiful Keys.
So, Alan, you work on the coral team here at FWRI for the state of Florida?
Yep, Tanya and I both work on the Coral Rescue team here in the South Florida Regional Lab in Marathon, Florida. So our coral team down here in the Keys consists of a couple different programs, including we have an elkhorn monitoring program, which is a fate tracking program here in the Florida Keys for a threatened coral species. We also have disturbance response monitoring, or DRM, which is the largest collaborative volunteer-based coral monitoring effort in the entire world. And then there's the Coral Reef Evaluation and Monitoring Program, or CREMP, which has been ongoing since 1996 and is one of the longest running monitoring projects in South Florida. And Tanya and I, we mainly focus and work on the Coral Rescue Project, which was launched in response to stony coral tissue loss disease.
What is stony coral tissue loss disease?
Florida's coral reef is currently experiencing a multi-year disease-related mortality event that has resulted in massive die-offs in multiple stony coral species. This new disease was coined stony coral tissue loss disease, and it affects over 20 species of coral through tissue loss lesions that often result in the entire coral colony losing its tissue and dying. And for context, over 20 species of coral, like I mentioned, is over half of all of the stony coral species found on the Florida Reef Tract. And unfortunately, this disease also affects 4 of the 7 corals listed as threatened under the Endangered Species Act, or ESA. And since stony coral tissue loss disease was first observed offshore of Miami-Dade County in late 2014, the disease has spread to the northernmost extent of the Florida Reef Tract and all the way down the Florida Keys through Key West and into the Marquesas Islands, unfortunately killing thousands of corals along the way. And although the cause of this disease is relatively unknown, researchers believe it has a bacterial component because effective disease treatments include antibiotic components such as amoxicillin. Stony coral tissue loss disease is waterborne, can be transmitted through the water, and can also be transmitted to other corals through direct contact. Researchers are working super hard to identify what actually is causing this disease, how it spreads, and what we as citizens and scientists can do to stop it. There's been a tremendous statewide response to stony coral tissue loss disease, including intervention, which uses techniques like antibiotics, paste, epoxy, even probiotics. Then there's research, which studies what the disease actually is by looking at how the disease affects coral tissues themselves and studies the bacteria on the surface of these coral colonies. And then there's rescue. And though coral rescue is just one part of this disease response, with the help of our awesome partners at the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, rescue has turned out to be a very large part of the statewide response to combat stony coral tissue loss disease.
Wow, it really sounds like a multi-partner effort to respond to this disease. How is FWRI responding to stony coral tissue loss disease?
FWRI is responding to stony coral tissue loss disease by launching the Coral Rescue Plan. And the Coral Rescue Plan was developed to rescue susceptible species ahead of the disease boundary and also rescue surviving corals from inside the disease endemic zone and placing them in land-based aquaria. And this plan was put in place to, 1, prevent the corals from becoming infected in the first place, 2, preserve their genetic diversity, and 3, for them to serve as parents for offspring for future restoration activities. Because of the unprecedented impacts of stony coral tissue loss disease, FWC and FWRI thought something needed to be done as soon as we possibly could to save some of the remaining corals from the Florida Reef Tract for restoration in the future. There are many groups that were studying what was on the surface of the corals and looking at the tissues, but there are very few groups actually trying to rescue these corals and save them. And to date, we have around 1,900 coral colonies and holding that were rescued from the Lower Keys, Marquesas Islands, and even the Dry Tortugas National Park. And like I mentioned earlier, with the help of AZA, These corals are being held all across the country, from as far west as Colorado to as far east as New Jersey, and from all the way up north in Michigan to down south in Texas. So the rescue project has collected corals from all over the reef, and these corals are now literally all over the country. So it's pretty great.
Wow, that's incredible. So these corals are rescued. How are they collected?
So corals have been collected for this project through day trips and live-aboard trips, where we spend about a week on a large boat. We outfit the boat to be able to hold the corals safely until we get back to shore. To actually collect a coral, divers search and collect corals from the reef, but we have to be really particular that we collect the most perfect corals without any damage or health issues. And we try to collect corals that are between 4 and 12 inches, and we aim to collect about 2 to 4 of each target species, so that we're not collecting all of one species from one site. And we actually use a hammer and chisel to gently remove the corals from the reef. And they get their picture taken with a specific ID tag underwater, and then they're placed into a plastic bag. Once we're on the boat, we take each coral out of their bag, we measure them, we take a genetic sample, and they get another picture taken. Then they get mounted onto a tile so they're upright, stable, and ready to grow.
Wow, so where do you hold all of these corals?
So our corals are initially held at our intermediate holding facilities, where they undergo an initial antiseptic bath and initial observations to make sure they're healthy and stable. And then we actually mail all of these corals across the country, like Alan mentioned. We pack up the corals into a cooler with water and bubble wrap and ship them to different facilities and aquariums across the country for holding. We're currently working closely with the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, AZA, to find temporary homes for all of these corals. We currently have corals being held in 18 different AZA facilities, 22 facilities total, including a few others. We have rescue corals all over Florida: the Florida Aquarium, Reef Institute, Nova Southeastern University, University of Miami, Mote Marine Lab, and we have held corals at Keys Marine Lab in the Florida Keys.
Wow, that's really cool. A lot of different organizations and partners come together to rescue these corals and care for them. How do you determine who gets to have which corals, and how do you care for corals in an aquarium?
So in preparation to receive corals, we also ship each facility live rock and a variety of maintenance animals to help control algae and other nuisance pests in the tank. Live rock is rock that came from near a reef, and it's useful because it gets the systems ready for holding corals. Some of these animals that we ship include peppermint shrimp, hermit crabs, snails, and urchins. And these are all part of a healthy reef ecosystem that we're trying to imitate in captivity. At a facility here in the Florida Keys, we actually quarantine the animals and the live rock for 30 days. And then we ship those animals and rock to the facilities that are getting ready to hold corals. So the facilities that we have as a part of this project are all accredited, and they need to meet the staff, expertise, and facility requirements to hold corals for this project. Facilities holding these corals have years of coral husbandry experience and have all the necessary tanks, pumps, and filters to make these corals really happy. The corals are really well taken care of, and they definitely thrive in their new homes with perfect lighting, clean water, lots of food, and they even have coral veterinarians on call just in case the corals get sick.
Wow, that's incredible. So what are the future plans for the Coral Rescue Project?
So we're currently in phase 3 of the Coral Rescue Project, which means we're focusing on collecting corals within the disease impacted area, also known as the endemic zone. We have recently collected 71 coral colonies from Fisher Island in Miami. This was our first endemic collection, and these were collected from a construction zone, so these corals were going to be demolished, so we thought we'd come in and rescue them. And these corals are currently being held at the Reef Institute in West Palm Beach. Eventually, following some genotyping results, we hope to be able to mix endemic and non-endemic corals together to hopefully produce some super strong babies that might be more resilient to stony coral tissue loss disease and other coral diseases. A big focus right now is on propagation and spawning. University of Miami and the Florida Aquarium have had great success with spawning lately. We even have some facilities gearing up to strictly work on propagation and learning all about these coral life cycles. Our network of facilities and experts continues to grow. In the future, we hope to outplant and restore these rescue corals and their babies back to Florida's coral reef tract. We will be using KML and other Florida facilities as a halfway point before outplanting corals. Once outplanted, we hope that they will grow and help restore the coral populations that were lost due to stony coral tissue loss disease.
Alan and Tanya, thanks so much for talking with us about FWRI's coral rescue efforts. It really is a joint effort between multiple different partners and organizations coming together to help out Florida's coral reef. You can keep up with our rescue efforts and all things coral on our website. And thanks so much for talking with us again, and we'll see you later.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks.